Some towns are born from silence, growing in the quiet places of the world. Elden Grove was one of those towns, nestled between ancient forests and the cold, gray sea. Fog was its constant companion, a shroud that softened reality and hid things just beyond sight. But the silence in Elden Grove was never empty. It was filled with whispers, stories passed down through generations. Tales of things that walked in the woods when the moon was new, of lights that lured sailors to their doom. These weren't just stories, they were the town's heartbeat, its memory. All pointed to one truth: something ancient slept beneath the town, and it was best not to wake it. The legend had a name, rarely spoken aloud: the Silt Walker, a creature of mud and mist, a dark guardian that fed on the fear of those who threatened the town. For centuries the people honored this pact, telling stories, performing rituals, remembering. Because forgetting was the one thing the Silt Walker would not forgive. Forgetting was an invitation, a betrayal, and the price was too terrible to imagine. The whispers warned of it, the wind carried caution through the pines. This is a story about what happens when a town decides to forget. It's about fear, not the sudden kind but the slow, creeping dread that settles in your bones. Elden Grove learned that lesson the hard way. They tried to cut out the heart of their own history, believing they could silence the whispers by refusing to listen. But darkness isn't something you can wall out, it seeps in through the cracks, waiting for you to forget it's there. Today is June 12, 2025. The fog is thicker than ever, the silence deeper. The whispers have stopped. The few who remember don't sleep much anymore. They watch the fog, listen to the quiet, and wait. They know what they did, who they sacrificed, and what is coming for them. Some legends aren't just stories, they are promises. And Elden Grove broke its promise. This is what happened next. This is the haunting. The slow unraveling of a town that chose to erase its own soul, only to find something much worse waiting to take its place. Elden Grove was a place out of time, disconnected from the modern world, nestled in a fog-trapped coastal valley. The mist clung to the Douglas firs, swirled down Main Street, and wrapped the church in haze. Cell service was unreliable, the internet slow. People relied on landlines and face-to-face conversations. The fog provided privacy, a barrier against the outside world. The town's true foundation was folklore. Every landmark had a story, every haunting a lesson. The supernatural was a fact of life. People left offerings by the creek, avoided the cannery after dark, and spoke of the Silt Walker with fear and reverence. This acceptance was woven into the fabric of their community, a shared secret that bound them together. Newcomers who dismissed the legends never lasted long. The town had a way of weeding out those who couldn't hear the whispers. For those who stayed, life was a delicate balance, a quiet acknowledgement of the forces that surrounded them. They knew the rules, respected the boundaries, and for a long time, that was enough to keep the peace. At the center of this web of folklore was Elias Crowe, the town's memory keeper and archivist of the uncanny. Born and raised in Elden Grove, Elias collected the unwritten tales, preserving them with care. His history classes were the most popular. He made the past feel alive, immediate, and sometimes terrifyingly close. His book, The Silt Walker's Pact, was a local sacred text, a guide to coexisting with the shadows. Parents read it to their children. Newcomers received it as a welcome gift. When strange things happened, people went to Elias, not for solutions but for understanding. He listened, consulted his notes, and reminded them of the old ways. He was the bridge between the modern world and the ancient one, the anchor that held Elden Grove steady. By keeping the stories alive, he maintained the balance and ensured the Silt Walker was remembered and appeased. The town saw him as their protector, their shepherd, the man who held the darkness at bay with the magic of a story. They put their faith in him, never imagining they would one day cast him into the shadows, or how much they would need him once he was gone. The shift was subtle at first, a change in the texture of fear as the days grew shorter and the fog pressed in heavier. The usual strange occurrences became unfamiliar and menacing. Lights appeared in the woods, sickly green and twitching, watching and waiting. Then came the animals, livestock found mutilated, arranged in strange patterns. The fear in town curdled. This felt alien, hostile. The whispers grew sharper, the old rules no longer applied. The breaking point came when a little girl, missing for only an hour, returned, changed, her eyes wide with terror. She whispered to Elias, "He's waking up, and he's hungry. You stopped singing him to sleep." The council latched onto her words, looking to Elias and his stories for blame. Panic twisted logic. Elias wasn't keeping the darkness at bay, he was inviting it in. The council saw a simple solution: silence the stories and silence the storyteller. The protector became the pariah, the keeper of the flame accused of arson. The council's decision was swift. Elias Crowe's book was banned, copies confiscated and burned. His name was erased from records, plaques removed, his column discontinued. Friends and neighbors avoided him, students were told he'd taken leave. Elias did not fight, he grew quiet, withdrawn, a ghost in his own life. One morning he was gone. His house empty, a cup of cold coffee on the table. The council announced he'd moved away for the good of the community. Most accepted this with relief. They believed they were safe. The quiet that followed was profound but not peaceful. It was the quiet of a held breath. In the weeks after Elias vanished, a strange stillness settled over Elden Grove. The green lights vanished, the animal mutilations stopped. The council congratulated themselves. A fragile normalcy returned, but the silence was a heavy, oppressive blanket. The familiar spirits, Alara's weeping, the cannery ghost, were gone. Even the fog felt different, colder. The absence of Elias was a presence. His empty house stood as a monument to their fear. The quiet was not peace but anticipation, a deep dread that something had been unleashed. By erasing their history, they hadn't banished the monster, they'd unmoored it. The stories and rituals had been chains, lullabies, the pact that kept the ancient thing sleeping. Now there were no more stories, no more warnings, only silence. And in that silence something was beginning to stir, something awake and hungry. The night of the harvest moon arrived, rising as a blood-red wound in the sky. The silence broke with a low, resonant hum from the earth. The power grid died, plunging the town into red-tinged darkness. Symbols appeared, glowing green runes carved into doors, painted on sidewalks, etched into glass. The town was being marked, its residents inventoried. The message was clear: this place is mine now. Shadows detached from walls, moving with a jerky, unnatural gait. They seeped under doors, through cracks, hunting. In the town square, a tall, gaunt figure stood, wrapped in muddy rags and reeds. It was not Elias Crowe, it was the Siltwalker, awakened and starved. It raised a long arm pointing toward the councilman's house. The shadows converged, and a single scream cut through the night. The harvest had begun. Was Elias Crowe a protector, a warden, or something darker? His stories were not just warnings, they were the bars of a cell, the locks and chains that kept the Siltwalker sleeping. The town, in its panic, didn't just ban a book, they fired the warden. Or was Elias an accomplice, a high priest, nurturing the creature with fear as an offering? Did he vanish, or did he open the door from the other side? The figure in the square was not Elias, but did it wear his memory? The fate of Elden Grove is a ghost story about a haunted history. The town believed it could cure its sickness by erasing memory. But history is not a story you can untell. The past is never dead, it's a foundation. And when you tear it down, you find what it was built to hold back. Some doors should never be opened. Some are held shut only by memory. When you choose to forget, you're not locking the door, you're letting go of the handle. In Elden Grove, the fog is thick, the silence complete. The harvest is over, and in the quiet you can almost hear the sound of a door, slowly, deliberately, creaking open.